So we are talking about structuring engaging one-on-ones. So the purpose is to not only be efficient, but also engaging and get the most out of meetings that you possibly can to make sure that everybody feels heard, valued, and you're able to work collaboratively. So it is to emphasize, or I like to emphasize the importance of having structured one-on-one meetings instead of, say la vie and getting to what you speak about, because it makes everyone feel not only more engaged, but also more successful. So today we're going to be talking about agendas. We're going to talk about how to approach feedback. And overall, it should help you just set up these meetings to be more successful. When you start setting one-on-one meetings, I am a huge advocate of setting a structured agenda. And the reason why I like this is because it ensures that everything gets covered while also providing space for troubleshooting and feedback. It helps provide key updates and provide all of the necessary info. I am dropping a template in the chat for you all, hopefully. I am nearly certain that I made it link only or link viewable. And this check-in meeting template is meant to be a running document that you can update every week and get filled out. And I will talk about the different sections in a minute. So with the type of communication that we want to create a safe space where you are able to have honest communication. It is imperative to create those spaces because this is the space in which you find out if there are any problems, if there are any resources that are needed, and if your staff needs anything from you. It also helps foster a deeper engagement and keep people in the organization because institutional knowledge loss is no joke. So you want to always active listen and ask open-ended questions because they further that deep engagement. And you also want to balance listening with providing feedback and solution-based directions because it continues that cycle of this is the spot where you can come, you can be vulnerable, and you can ask those questions without judgment. Because here we are focusing on growth. We are focusing on solutions. We are not focusing on, you missed that deadline again. What's up? You can approach it in the way of, there was a missed deadline. Let's talk about what happened and how we can improve in the future so it doesn't happen again. And it all goes to fostering a supportive environment. With fostering trust, you continue to build these relationships. It is always imperative that your team trusts you because then they will listen to your experience, they will listen to your feedback, and they will continue to openly communicate. With management, the goal is to offer guidance that supports and helps other people grow and develop, not merely meeting deadlines. Because you are always pursuing, what does my team need to help them grow? What does my team need to be able to help them move to the next stage in their journeys? It's not simply, great, here's a task list, here's a to-do list, go forth and do it without my support. It is, how can I help you grow? How can I help you take ownership of these tasks? And this is also the space where you can collaborate and problem solve. Problem solving is the theme of our meetings. It is where we come together. It is where I listen to your opinion, you listen to mine, and we make a plan together to move forward. So, when talking about brainstorming and fostering solutions, we look at what is needed to be able to prevent problems from happening again, and what is needed from me to provide to you to help you be successful. It is not simply saying, I need A, B, and C by 5 p.m. It is, what do you need from me to be able to allow you to provide A, B, and C by 5 p.m.? It could be, a lack of resources. It could be time management. And this is where you are able to glean those insights to be able to help people move forward. And it also allows you the space to provide constructive feedback. When you're managing people, there's always going to be space for growth. But when you're providing feedback, you want to be very specific and actionable. You want to provide clear direction when you are talking to people about any items in which you're providing feedback. It is not simply a blanket statement of, you are terrible and you need to do better. I mean, don't use those words. That's not kind, but it is actionable of, this didn't work. In the future, it would be best if we considered these other items, or let's go in a different direction next time. And it helps to focus on behaviors and outcomes rather than personal traits. The reason why you want to focus on outcomes is that is the only thing that people can really control in a constant fashion. If we're going to start focusing on personal traits, we're going to need to change, to be shrinkies. And as a manager, we want to focus on these outcomes to allow change and growth. And it also helps to balance positive feedback with areas of improvement. And you might have heard it before, compliment sandwiches, because they are super helpful. And if you're not familiar, compliment sandwich is one good thing, one area of improvement, and another good thing. And the reason you want to package those is because it helps foster not simply continuity of feedback, but also to put it in perspective that things are being done correctly. And it allows to recognize those achievements. And that's why we oftentimes put them in a sandwich, because when you are framing these, you are approaching them from an area of growth and an area to foster learning, not simply, this task didn't work, do better, or you continue to miss deadlines, what's up? It is getting to the core of the issues to be able to move forward and prevent these things from happening again and escalating. And as I've continued to mention, we are supporting team growth. So when we recognize the areas of improvement, we are continuing to foster a cycle of learning. So we're going to use SMART goals to provide clear guidance. And SMART goals are a very specific way of structuring projects and goals in general that are measurable, that are achievable, and they get to the core of what you're trying to achieve, not simply task oriented, but it is very helpful to provide that guidance because people are able to view the whole thing and look at what their deliverables are and how come. There are a whole suite of tools to help you set SMART goals. We can have a different lunch and learn at a different time about SMART goals. I'd totally be open to that. Um, but in this context, when we are providing learning and growth, we want to offer resources, we want to offer development, we want to offer insights. And we want to also create a plan for follow-up and accountability. The reason why we pursue those is because if we have structure, if we have a plan for accountability, you are able to continue to foster not simply growth, but also getting things done. Oftentimes, we are moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and if we don't have accountability, things fall through the cracks. So to continue this thoughts, we want to build rapport, we want to build trust. So we want to be transparent in our communications. There's always going to be things that managers can't share with people they manage, but most of the time, letting people in on the insights as to how decisions were made or the reasons why we do things really helps provide context for the employees so they're not working in a silo. So we want to be very communicative. We want to share our own experiences because it creates relatable environment or simply helps people see that you've been where they are. You've gone through similar experiences, and it helps continue to build that relationship because you are showing interest in team members' well-being, helping them set boundaries, and their career development. So let's switch gears a little bit to preparing for meetings. So I put the agenda in the chat and I will share it again in a little bit. But the agenda is a shared document. All of your check-in meetings should be one document that you update every week, not several different documents that are shared. And the reason why is because you're able to see trends, you're able to look at history, and it is easier to set agendas if you are able to look at what happened last week because you can quickly update it. So the managers provide the structure, and the team members who are coming to the meeting provide the content. And I always encourage people to finalize the agenda 24 hours before the meeting because it ensures that the employees are getting everything that they need out of these meetings. It also allows us to track all the things. So we are able to assure accountability. With agendas, this is not the place to track the data. The places where we track the data are Every Action, Van, Salesforce, MailChimp, whatever systems you're using, that's where we track the data. Or maybe you're using Asana or Monday or a whole variety of other tools. That's where you track data and accountability. The agendas and the team check-ins are simply to speak about these items. So regularly review action items. And this you'll be able to quickly do by looking at last week. Did we get everything accomplished? Were there any items that fell through the cracks? And if so, what happened? And it allows you to hold them accountable, but also provide that support that they need. Because you're able to say, this wasn't accomplished. What were the roadblocks that prevented you from accomplishing this? Instead of, this wasn't accomplished, you're a terrible person. Don't say that. That's mean. That's not going to help anyone. And it also helps with the accountability of items that you as a manager are providing. Because you are leading by example and you are using the systems that you set up to ensure your team does as well. If you are not leading by example, if you're not using the systems, they're going to follow your example. That's just the reality of it. The great thing about meetings and styles is you're able to adapt. You're able to change the agenda templates to be able to adapt to the people you're working with. So it might be feedback first, it might be action items first, or you might, simply follow the structure that you set, because every person you manage is a little bit different. They are all coming with different experiences. They all oftentimes prefer to get feedback in different manners. And by fostering these communications, you're able to figure out how people like to receive feedback. Some people like to receive feedback in the way of, these are the things that you did wrong, these are the things that you need to do right. Other people say that their feedback is better in written manner ahead of time. It is going to allow you to be able to adjust. And when providing that feedback, try to follow the examples or the preferences that people give you. It is going to continue to foster trust and reduce anxiety. Because, I mean, let's face it, we're all a little bit anxious. And if you tell me that I suck in front of a room full of people, I'm gonna get self-conscious about it and I might, not want to engage. But if you send me an email saying, hey, you did some things wrong, and I can sit with it, I can reflect, I can approach it in a problem-solving manner instead of feeling attacked. So, some tips and tricks. We are, of course, going to have agendas prepared in advance. We are going to follow action items and set SMART goals. We are going to be flexible because the work that we all do, we oftentimes have to pivot. Things are going to get thrown at our faces and we have to change gears. That is just the reality of, how we structure the world. And the other thing that I always like to point out is conduct issue-specific one-on-ones for deeper discussions. The weekly one-on-ones should be an overall check-in, not, issue-based, this is the specific campaign we're working on. It should be more of, this is your entire role, your entire check-ins, an overview of all the things that you're working on, instead of really, drilling down on one specific issue. When you're looking at specific one-on-ones, it might involve other participants. It might be a quicker meeting. It might be, updates with leadership or different departments. So you want to separate those out to be able to really focus on the things that you're working on and allow the growth that is needed for these meetings to be successful. And maximizing the benefits helps us see the growth that will take place. It helps you set either quarterly, semi-annual, annual goals for people to be able to grow from when they start working with you to transition to a different role, different department, or grow their position, because your goal as a manager should always be to help the people you manage grow to the next level. So by having these structured meetings, it's going to lead to better performance, stronger relationships, a more engaged team, and you're always going to be able to see if there are any trends and or problems that are surfacing, because you're going to have that trust. And it also allows your team members to reflect on their current practices and identify areas that they feel need to be improvement. So as a manager, you can provide tools, you can provide trainings, and set systems up that work for the whole team. So the key takeaways I want you to take from here is consistency and structure, and use these strategies in our meetings. So let me share with you the template that I had in mind. So this is a mix of a template from the Management Center and a couple of other adjustments that I've made throughout years of managing people, because sometimes the management center puts a lot of additional stuff in templates, and I'm like, I don't need that. So this is a cleaner version that's more engaging. So at the top of every agenda, I like to have all the hot links. So these are our master files, any meetings, work plans, any outstanding items. And of course, we have a parking lot because there are oftentimes not enough time for covering everything. So we put it in a parking lot. So with check-in meeting, so we would have a date. And I always like to start off meetings by checking in as humans and checking in as people. How are you? Are you well? Are there any updates that you would like to share from your life? There are some updates that I would like to share from my life. You know, I got a new book, or I completed a new puzzle. I am coloring this cute picture during meetings. You know, just check in as people because we're all humans. Then you set your big rocks, your big priorities. This week is going to be successful if I complete the following items. Here are key updates from projects we're working on, from the organization, from life. You know, Pennsylvania might have some big news coming up. I don't know yet. We're gonna hopefully know soon. And these are the items that we're going to be discussing today. And this is where both the employee and manager can add items that they want to get covered. And then we move on to learning and growth. So one of the things that I always like to do is, here's a success and here's an area of improvement. I never use weakness because that's mean. And you go both from yourself, so you evaluate yourself, and the manager evaluates. So this is a space where employees are able to reflect and say, hey, I could do this better, and I am awesome at this thing. And that self-reflection really helps foster growth. And it is only able to be enacted if people trust you to be able to get honest answers and, you know, safe space. Then you talk about next steps. And one of the things that I always like to ask at the end of my one-on-ones is, what do you need from me to be successful? And I like to ask that because it really helps people communicate, and it opens up a space where people are able to come to you and say, hey, I could really use this training, or I could really use this tool. And it allows for that space because you might not ask it as a manager. So I wanted to give some space for questions, but also I have 2 links for you all because we have another training coming up. And if you haven't done so yet, I have 2 QR codes, one for the newsletter and one for our next training on the power of stories.